I reached for my wallet to pay for my half of the dinner bill, a simple gesture I'd done on countless first dates before, when Daniel grabbed my hand. Not gently, not playfully. He grabbed my wrist hard enough that I felt his fingers press into my skin, hard enough that the waiter taking our payment froze mid-reach for my credit card, hard enough that the couple at the table next to us glanced over with concern. "Not while I'm breathing," Daniel said, his voice low and intense, his eyes locked on mine with an expression that I couldn't quite read. Was it romantic? Possessive? Threatening? I didn't know, but every instinct I had was screaming that something about this moment was very, very wrong. My name is Jessica Torres. I'm 29 years old, work as a nurse at a city hospital, and I'm about to tell you the story of how a single first date turned into 6 months of escalating control and manipulation that nearly destroyed my sense of self. The story of how a man I barely knew decided he had the right to make every decision in my life, from what I ate, to what I wore, to who I spoke to, all under the guise of being a gentleman and taking care of me. The story of how I almost lost myself completely before I finally found the strength to walk away. It started 3 weeks earlier when I matched with Daniel on a dating app. I'd been single for about a year after ending a relationship that had run its course, and I was ready to start putting myself out there again. Daniel's profile looked good, maybe even too good. Attractive photos that showed him at nice restaurants and on vacation in European cities. A bio that described him as a successful financial consultant who enjoyed fine dining, travel, and taking care of the people he cared about. At 35, he seemed mature and established, someone who had his life together. We messaged back and forth for a few days before he asked me out. His messages were attentive and engaging, asking me questions about my work as a nurse, my interests, my family. He suggested we meet at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, somewhere I'd heard of but never been because the prices were way out of my usual range. When I hesitated and suggested maybe we could grab coffee first, something more casual for a first meeting, he insisted. "I want to take you somewhere special, Jessica. You deserve to be treated well. Let me do that for you." It seemed sweet at the time, chivalrous even, a man who wanted to treat me well, who was willing to invest in making a good first impression. So I agreed, and spent way too long getting ready, choosing an outfit that was nice but not too dressy, doing my makeup carefully, feeling nervous and excited in the way you do before a first date with someone who seems promising. Daniel was waiting at the restaurant when I arrived, standing outside the entrance like he'd been watching for me. He looked even better in person than in his photos, tall and well-dressed in a suit that clearly cost more than my rent. He smiled when he saw me and immediately moved to take my arm, guiding me into the restaurant like I couldn't walk through a door on my own. "You look beautiful," he said, but then immediately followed it with, "Though I wished you'd worn a dress. You have great legs. You should show them off more." The comment caught me off guard. I was wearing nice pants and a blouse, perfectly appropriate for a first date at a restaurant, but before I could respond, he was already talking to the hostess, giving his name, leading me to our table. The restaurant was exactly as expensive and fancy as I'd feared. Heavy cloth napkins, multiple forks at each place setting, a wine list that looked like a novel, prices on the menu that made my eyes water. I immediately started calculating in my head whether I could afford to split this meal, whether I should suggest we go somewhere else, whether I was already in too deep to back out gracefully. Daniel ordered wine without asking if I wanted any or what kind I preferred. He ordered an appetizer for us to share without consulting me. When the waiter came to take our dinner orders, Daniel asked what I was thinking about getting, listened to my choice, then suggested something else instead. "The salmon here is exceptional, much better than the chicken. You should get that instead." I should have pushed back right then, should have said I'm perfectly capable of ordering my own food, thanks, should have recognized this controlling behavior for what it was. But I was trying to be polite, trying not to make waves on a first date, trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was just trying to be helpful. Maybe he knew the restaurant better than I did. Maybe I was being too sensitive. So I let the waiter bring the salmon even though I'd wanted the chicken. During dinner, Daniel dominated the conversation. He talked about his job in finance, name-dropping companies and clients, making it clear he made a lot of money. He talked about his expensive hobbies, his luxury car, his condo in a trendy neighborhood, his recent trip to Italy. He asked me questions about my work, but would interrupt my answers to share his own opinions about healthcare or to tell stories about times he'd been to the hospital. He asked about my family, but seemed more interested in analyzing them than actually learning about the people I loved. Your dad is a mechanic? That's hard physical labor. You must worry about him. My dad is a senior partner at a law firm, so he's been able to take care of himself financially. Your brother is still in school at 26? That's a bit old to still be figuring things out. I finished my undergraduate degree at 22 and my MBA at 24. His comments had this edge to them, like he was subtly putting down my family while elevating his own. But he said everything with a smile, in a tone that could be interpreted as concern or just making conversation, so I couldn't quite call him out on it without seeming overly defensive. When the bill came, that's when the grabbing incident happened. I reached for my wallet, fully intending to pay for my half of this expensive meal I hadn't really wanted, and Daniel seized my wrist. Not while I'm breathing. You're not paying for anything when you're with me. I take care of what's mine. What's mine? That phrase should have been my cue to leave immediately. We'd known each other for exactly 2 hours. I wasn't his anything. But the waiter was standing there, the people at nearby tables were watching, and I was so flustered by the whole interaction that I just withdrew my hand and let Daniel pay the full bill with a credit card he flourished like he was performing for an audience. After dinner, Daniel insisted on driving me home, even though I'd driven myself to the restaurant. Your car will be fine in the parking garage overnight. I'll bring you back to get it tomorrow. I want to make sure you get home safely. But I have to work an early shift tomorrow, I protested. I need my car to get to the hospital. Daniel waved off my concern. I'll pick you up and drive you to work. What time do you need to be there? I don't mind. I mind, I said, more firmly this time. I appreciate the offer, but I'm perfectly capable of driving myself home. Daniel's expression tightened for just a moment, a flash of something that might have been anger or frustration, before smoothing back into a charming smile. Of course you're independent, that's one of the things I like about you. But I'd still feel better following you home, making sure you get there safely. It's a dangerous city at night. Before I could argue further, he was walking me to my car, waiting while I unlocked it, leaning in through the window after I'd gotten in. I had a wonderful time tonight, Jessica. You're exactly the kind of woman I've been looking for. Smart, beautiful, caring. I'd like to see you again, soon. Maybe tomorrow after your shift? I hesitated. Something about the evening had felt off in ways I couldn't quite articulate, but Daniel had been attentive and generous, and maybe I was just overthinking things. Sure, I heard myself say. Tomorrow sounds good. Daniel smiled, and before I could react, he leaned in further and kissed me. Not a polite first date kiss, a claiming kiss, possessive and intense, his hand coming up to cup the back of my head so I couldn't pull away easily. When he finally released me, I was breathless and confused. I'll text you tomorrow about where to meet, he said. Drive safe. He closed my car door and stood there watching as I started my engine and pulled out of the parking space. I looked in my rearview mirror and he was still standing there, watching my car until I turned the corner and lost sight of him. The drive home, I replayed the evening in my mind. The way he'd ordered for me without asking, the way he'd grabbed my wrist when I tried to pay, the phrase, "What's mine?" when we barely knew each other, the way he'd dismissed my concerns about my car and my schedule, the forceful kiss that hadn't really asked permission. Each individual thing seemed small, possibly excusable, the kind of thing that could be chalked up to him trying too hard, or being nervous, or having different ideas about dating etiquette. But together, they created a pattern that made me uncomfortable. I called my best friend, Mia, when I got home, needing to process what had happened. "So, how was the hot finance guy?" she asked. "I don't know," I said slowly. "It was weird. Not bad exactly, just weird. He was really intense, like grabbed my wrist when I tried to pay for dinner intense." Mia made a concerned noise. "That's not okay. Are you going to see him again?" I already said yes to tomorrow, and I don't know, maybe I'm overreacting. He paid for an expensive dinner, he wants to see me again, he's clearly interested. Maybe I'm just not used to dating someone who's so forward about what he wants.
Or maybe your gut is telling you something, Mia said. Listen to it. You don't owe this guy anything just because he bought you salmon. If it feels wrong, it probably is wrong. But I didn't listen to my gut, or to Mia's advice. When Daniel texted me the next morning with a time and place for dinner, I responded yes. When Daniel showed up at my apartment instead of meeting me at the restaurant like we'd discussed, I told myself he was just being thoughtful about driving me.
When he commented that my outfit was too casual and I should change into a dress, I actually went back inside and changed because I didn't want to start an argument. Looking back now, that moment of going back inside to change clothes was a turning point I didn't recognize. It was me accepting that Daniel's opinion about my appearance mattered more than my own comfort. It was me prioritizing his approval over my own judgment. It was me learning that keeping him happy meant making myself smaller, and that lesson would repeat itself hundreds of times over the next 6 months. That was the beginning of 6 months where Daniel systematically took over every aspect of my life. It happened so gradually, so incrementally that I didn't realize what was occurring until I was in way too deep. Each individual change seemed small enough to accept. Each request seemed reasonable enough when framed as concern or love or just wanting to help. But together, they created a web of control that eventually trapped me completely. The first week, we saw each other every single day. Daniel would text me constantly throughout each day, good morning messages before I'd even woken up, checking in during my shifts at the hospital asking how my day was going and what I was doing, good night messages that would come with expectations that I'd respond before going to sleep. If I didn't respond quickly enough, within 15 or 20 minutes, he'd send follow-up texts. Is everything okay? Why aren't you answering? Did I do something wrong? Are you upset with me? The messages seemed to come from a place of caring at first, of wanting to make sure I was all right and that we were okay. So I started responding faster and faster to avoid worrying him or making him think something was wrong between us. What I didn't realize was that I was training myself to be constantly available to him, to prioritize his need for contact over whatever I was doing, to feel guilty and anxious whenever I couldn't respond immediately. Within 2 weeks, I was checking my phone compulsively every few minutes, afraid I'd missed a message from Daniel and he'd be upset or worried. He insisted on picking me up and driving me to and from work every single day, even though it meant he had to leave his office early and navigate across the city in traffic. "It's on my way," he'd say, even though his financial consulting firm was in the complete opposite direction from the hospital where I worked. And besides, the city can be dangerous, especially for a woman alone. I want to make sure you're safe. There are crazy people out there. I need to know you're protected. At first, I protested, saying I was perfectly capable of driving myself and had been doing so for years without incident. But Daniel was persistent, showing up at the hospital at the end of my shifts whether I'd agreed to it or not, waiting in the parking lot, calling if I tried to leave without him. "It's easier if I just drive you," he'd say. "Then I know you got home safe. Why are you fighting this? Don't you want to spend time with me during the commute?" Eventually, I gave in because it seemed like such a small thing to make him happy, and I told myself it was actually kind of sweet that he cared so much about my safety. What I didn't recognize was that by controlling my transportation, Daniel was controlling my ability to go anywhere without his knowledge and approval. If I wanted to stop somewhere after work, I'd have to ask him to drive me there. If I wanted to meet a friend, I'd have to coordinate with Daniel's schedule. My independence and mobility were being systematically removed under the guise of care and protection. He started buying me clothes within the first month, showing up at my apartment with shopping bags full of expensive dresses and shoes and jewelry that were beautiful and clearly cost a fortune, but weren't really my style at all. They were more formal, more revealing, more attention-grabbing than the casual, comfortable clothes I normally wore. "I want to see you in things that show how beautiful you are," he'd say, as he pulled items out of bags, holding them up against me to see how they'd look. "You dress too conservatively, Jessica. You hide your body under these baggy clothes. You should be proud of your figure. You work hard to stay in shape as a nurse. All that time on your feet, you should show it off more. Let me help you develop a better sense of style."
When I tried to wear my own clothes on our dates, Daniel would look visibly disappointed. His face would fall, his smile would fade, and he'd make comments throughout the evening about how I looked so much better in the things he bought me. "Remember that blue dress I got you? You looked absolutely stunning in that. Why didn't you wear it tonight? This outfit is fine, I guess, but you have so many better options now." Eventually, it was easier to just wear what Daniel wanted than to deal with his disappointment and the subtle criticisms that would continue all evening if I didn't. My closet gradually filled with his choices, while my own clothes got pushed to the back, unworn and eventually forgotten.
He wanted to know where I was every single moment of every single day. If I mentioned going anywhere, even just to the grocery store or the pharmacy, he'd immediately ask for the exact address, what time I'd be there, how long I'd stay, whether I was going alone or with someone. If I went somewhere without telling him first, without getting his implicit approval, he'd call within minutes, his voice tight with concern that sounded like barely suppressed anger. "I've been trying to reach you. Where are you? Why didn't you tell me you were going out? I was worried something had happened to you. What if there'd been an emergency and I couldn't find you? You need to keep me informed about your location. It's just basic respect and consideration." If I made plans with friends, especially if those plans didn't include him, Daniel would want extensive details. Who would be there? What were their full names? How did I know them? Were there going to be any men in the group? Where exactly were we going? What time would I be home? Sometimes he'd invite himself along, saying it would be nice to meet my friends and he wanted to be part of all aspects of my life. Other times he'd guilt me into canceling altogether. "You see your friends all the time. When do I get to spend quality time with you? I miss you when you're not with me. We don't get that many hours together between your work schedule and my schedule. I thought you'd want to prioritize our relationship, especially since we're still in the early stages of building something real here." The manipulation was subtle but effective. I'd feel selfish for wanting to spend time away from Daniel, like I was being a bad girlfriend by not making him my top priority. So I started seeing my friends less and less, making excuses about being busy or tired, until the invitations started coming less frequently, because everyone assumed I was too wrapped up in my new relationship to have time for them, which was exactly what Daniel wanted, though I didn't see it at the time. He started making pointed comments about my friends, especially about Mia, who had been my best friend since college. Every time I'd come back from seeing her, Daniel would have observations and concerns. "She seems like she's trying to turn you against me, against us. I notice you're always more distant after you spend time with her, like she's putting negative ideas in your head about our relationship. Every time you hang out with her, you come back questioning things, pulling away from me, acting different. I think she's jealous that you're in a happy relationship and she's single. Jealous people try to sabotage other people's happiness because they can't stand to see what they don't have. Maybe you should see her less often, at least for a while, at least until our relationship is more established and stable." The comments planted seeds of doubt about my oldest friendship, made me second-guess Mia's motives when she expressed concern about how much time I was spending with Daniel, or how he seemed controlling. Was she actually worried about me, or was she jealous, like Daniel said? Was she being a good friend, or was she trying to interfere in my relationship? Daniel's constant insinuations made me trust my own friend less and trust his perspective more. He criticized my family whenever I talked to them on the phone, which I did less and less frequently because I knew it would lead to an interrogation afterward. "Your mom is so over-involved in your life. You're 29 years old, a grown adult professional. Why is she still trying to give you advice about every little decision? My mom raised me to be independent, to think for myself. Your brother is a bad influence, still in graduate school at 26, still figuring out what he wants to do with his life, no direction or ambition. You need to focus on our relationship, on building our future together, not get dragged into their drama and their problems. They're holding you back from your potential." Daniel was creating distance between me and every person who cared about me, every person who might notice what was happening and try to help me leave. He was isolating me systematically, making me dependent on him for social interaction and emotional support, cutting me off from anyone who might provide a reality check about his behavior. And I let it happen because I didn't understand what he was doing.
He controlled what I ate, when I ate, how much I ate, all under the pretense of caring about my health and well-being. You're a nurse, you should know better than to eat that much sugar. All that processed food is terrible for you. Let me order for you when we go out. I know what's healthy and what's not. You've gained a little weight since we started dating, maybe 5 or 6 pounds, probably from all the restaurant meals and the stress of your job. Maybe you should cut back on portions for a while, get back to your normal weight. You'll feel better about yourself if you're at your ideal size. When I protested that I was at a perfectly healthy weight for my height, that my eating was fine and my body was fine, he'd sigh and say, "I'm just trying to help you be your best self."
Don't you want that? Don't you want to be healthy and fit? I'm coming from a place of love here, Jessica. Why are you getting defensive about this? Gradually, I started eating less, skipping meals, feeling guilty whenever I wanted something he'd disapprove of. My relationship with food became fraught with anxiety and shame, always wondering if Daniel would judge what I was eating, always monitoring myself through his critical eyes. He monitored my spending habits with an attention to detail that felt invasive, but that he framed as financial responsibility and planning for our future. When I mentioned buying something for myself, anything beyond absolute necessities, he'd ask how much it cost and whether it was really necessary. Why are you spending $80 on that? Why are you wasting money on things you don't need when I buy you everything you actually need? You should be saving your money, being more financially responsible, building up your savings account. We need to think about our future together, about saving for a house or vacations or whatever comes next. Then, in the same breath, he'd buy me an expensive gift, something that cost hundreds of dollars, and hold it over my head later. I spend so much money on you, making sure you have nice things, taking you to good restaurants, buying you jewelry and clothes. The least you could do is appreciate it and stop wasting your own money on frivolous purchases. Show some gratitude for what I do for you. The double standard was obvious, but I felt too guilty to point it out. He was spending money on me, that was true, and I should be grateful, right? Who was I to complain about how he chose to use that generosity as a tool of control? 2 months in, Daniel had a key to my apartment. Not because I'd given him one, but because he'd gotten it copied from my keychain without asking my permission or even telling me he was doing it. I only found out when I came home from work one day and he was already inside, sitting on my couch like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I let myself in," he said casually when he saw my shocked expression. "I figured you'd be running late from your shift and I wanted to have dinner ready for you when you got home. Isn't that nice? Don't you appreciate having someone take care of you like this?" I stood in my doorway, my own doorway, feeling like an intruder in my own space. "How did you get in? I didn't give you a key." "Oh, I had one made a couple weeks ago," Daniel said, pulling a key from his pocket and dangling it in front of me. "I copied it from your keychain when you were in the shower at my place." Don't look at me like that, Jessica. Couples have keys to each other's places. It's normal. It's practical. What if there's an emergency and I need to get in? What if you lock yourself out and need help? I'm just being prepared and thinking ahead. The violation of my privacy and autonomy was stunning, but Daniel acted like I was being unreasonable for being upset about it. "You're overreacting," he said when I tried to express that this wasn't okay. "I didn't steal anything or go through your stuff. I just made dinner. Why are you turning this into a problem? Most girlfriends would be thrilled to come home to a homemade meal." "But you did go through my stuff," I said, my voice shaking. "You went through my keychain without permission. You copied my apartment key without asking me. You let yourself into my private space without my knowledge or consent. That's not okay." Daniel's expression darkened. "Your private space? I thought we were building a life together. I thought we were partners. But apparently you still need to have secrets, still need to keep me at a distance, still need your precious privacy from the man who loves you. Fine, I'll leave the key here if it's such a huge violation." He dropped the key on my kitchen counter with a loud clink and started gathering his things to leave, making a big show of being hurt and offended. "Wait," I heard myself say, even though every instinct was screaming at me to let him leave, to take back my space and my boundaries.
I felt guilty suddenly, like I'd overreacted, like I was being ungrateful for the dinner he'd made, like I was pushing away someone who loved me over something small. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe this was normal in relationships and I was the one with the problem. "You can keep the key," I said quietly. "I'm sorry I got upset. I was just surprised." Daniel smiled, and in that moment I recognized that this had been a test. He'd created a situation where he violated my boundaries, made me feel guilty for objecting, and gotten me to explicitly give him permission to continue violating those boundaries, and I'd fallen for it completely. "I'll try to give you warning next time I let myself in," he said, pocketing the key again. "But don't expect me to knock and wait like a guest. This is my space too now, right?" After that, Daniel started showing up at my apartment whenever he wanted. I'd come home to find him there, rearranging my furniture without asking. "I'm just making the space more functional, more adult, more sophisticated," he'd say when I walked in to find my couch in a different place and my bookshelf moved to another wall.
The way he had it set up felt very young, very college dorm. "We can do better than that. You're a professional adult. Your space should reflect that." He threw away decorations I'd had for years, sentimental items from travels or gifts from friends, saying they were childish or didn't fit his vision for how the apartment should look. "This poster is from college, right? You don't need it anymore. These picture frames are cheap looking, not sophisticated enough. This throw pillow doesn't match anything. It ruins the color scheme I'm creating." He criticized my book choices, pulling volumes off my shelf and commenting on them. "Romance novels? Really, Jessica? These are trash. Let me introduce you to real literature, actual quality writing." He went through my music, deleting songs from my playlists that he didn't like. "This music is depressing. This artist is garbage. Why do you listen to this?" He controlled my Netflix queue, removing shows I'd been watching and adding ones he wanted me to watch instead. "We can do better than this reality TV nonsense. Let me show you real quality television, real culture." My apartment stopped feeling like my own space. Every surface, every choice, every detail reflected Daniel's preferences rather than mine. The things that had made it home, the personal touches and quirky decorations and items that held meaning for me, were disappearing bit by bit, replaced with what Daniel deemed appropriate and sophisticated and adult. I felt like a guest in my own apartment, afraid to move things back or add new decorations because Daniel would just change them again. He wanted access to absolutely everything in my life. My phone, which he'd pick up without asking and scroll through my text messages and social media, reading private conversations and demanding explanations for anything he didn't like. "Who's this guy commenting on your Instagram? Why is he sending you laughing emojis? Why are you liking this woman's posts? I don't know her. Who is she to you?" My laptop, where he'd check my browsing history and question me about what I'd been looking at online. "Why were you looking at apartments in different neighborhoods? Are you planning to move away from me? Why were you reading articles about relationship problems? Are you complaining about us to strangers on the internet?" My mail, which he'd opened before I got home from work, reading through my bills and letters and packages. "You got a card from your ex," he said one day, holding up an opened envelope. "He's inviting you to his wedding. Were you planning to tell me about this? Were you planning to go? Why is he still contacting you?" When I objected to any of this, when I tried to say that these invasions of privacy weren't okay, that I deserved to have some boundaries even in a relationship, Daniel would turn it around on me. "Couples shouldn't have secrets from each other. Why are you being so protective of your privacy? What are you hiding? What don't you want me to see? Are you talking to other men? Are you cheating on me? Is that why you need so much privacy?" The accusations would escalate until I'd have to prove my innocence by letting him look at whatever he wanted, by demonstrating that I had nothing to hide, by surrendering more and more of my privacy to reassure him that I was loyal and faithful, which was exactly what he wanted. The questions and accusations weren't really about catching me doing something wrong. They were about establishing that he had the right to access every part of my life whenever he wanted.
3 months in, I barely recognized my own life. I saw my friends maybe once a month, always with Daniel present or with him texting me constantly the entire time until I'd make an excuse to leave early. I spoke to my family on the phone only, never visiting in person because Daniel would find reasons we couldn't make the trip. My apartment felt more like Daniel's space than mine, filled with things he'd bought and arranged, missing the personal touches that had made it mine. My wardrobe was completely different, all expensive clothes that Daniel approved of, rather than the comfortable, casual style I preferred. I was exhausted all the time from working my nursing shifts and then spending every evening and weekend with Daniel, never having time to myself to recharge. But I told myself this was what relationships were like: compromise, sacrifice, making your partner happy. Daniel loved me, he told me so constantly, and love meant putting the other person first, right? That's what I told myself, even as I felt myself disappearing. The breaking point started building around month 4. Daniel began talking about me quitting my job as a nurse. Your schedule is so unpredictable with the shifts. It makes it hard for us to plan things. And honestly, you don't need to work. I make plenty of money to support both of us. You could focus on other things, maybe volunteer work or planning our future. I loved my job. Nursing was my calling, the thing I'd worked hard to build a career in, a huge part of my identity. The thought of giving it up felt like giving up a piece of myself.
I'm not quitting my job, Daniel. I love being a nurse. We need 2 incomes if we're going to build a life together anyway. We don't need 2 incomes, he corrected. I make more than enough. This isn't about money, it's about you prioritizing our relationship. If you loved me as much as I love you, you'd want to spend more time together. You'd want to make our life easier instead of clinging to this job that stresses you out and takes you away from me. The manipulation was obvious in hindsight, but in the moment it made me feel guilty. Was I prioritizing my job over my relationship? Was I being selfish by wanting to keep working? Was I failing as a partner? Daniel also started talking about moving in together, or rather, about me moving into his condo. Your lease is up in 2 months. It doesn't make sense to renew when you're at my place most of the time anyway. Think about how much money you'll save on rent. We can use that money for vacations, for building our future. But I liked my apartment. It was small and not fancy, but it was mine, my own space that Daniel couldn't completely control. Moving in with him would mean giving up that last piece of independence. I don't think I'm ready to move in together yet, I said carefully. We've only been dating 4 months. That's pretty fast. Daniel's face darkened. 4 months and you're still not sure about us? I've been totally committed to you from day one. I've invested so much time and money and energy into this relationship, into making you happy, and you're still holding back? Maybe you don't actually love me as much as you claim to. The accusation stung. Of course I loved him, or at least I thought I did. When things were good between us, when Daniel was happy, he could be charming and attentive and generous. It was only when I pushed back or disagreed or wanted something different that he became critical and controlling. So I learned to avoid conflict, to agree with him, to make myself smaller so he'd stay happy. That's not healthy, my friend Mia told me when I finally saw her alone for coffee 4 months into dating Daniel. She'd been expressing concern for weeks, but I'd been defensive, making excuses for Daniel's behavior, insisting she just didn't understand our relationship. Jessica, listen to me. This isn't love, this is control. He's isolated you from your friends and family. He's monitoring everything you do. He's making you feel guilty for having your own life and your own opinions. He's trying to get you to quit your job and move in with him so you'll be completely dependent on him. These are all red flags for an abusive relationship. But he's never hit me, I protested. He's never physically hurt me. It's not abuse if there's no violence. Abuse isn't always physical, Mia said gently. Emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, they're all real and they're all damaging. And honestly, Jess, I'm worried about you. You're not yourself anymore. You're anxious all the time. You've lost weight. You never smile. When's the last time you did something just because you wanted to, without checking with Daniel first? I couldn't remember. That realization hit me like cold water.
When had I stopped making decisions for myself? When had I started constantly checking my phone to see if Daniel needed something? When had I started changing my clothes and my plans and my words to avoid setting him off? When had I become this person who felt like she was walking on eggshells in her own life? That conversation with Mia planted a seed of doubt that grew over the following weeks. I started paying attention to Daniel's behavior in a new way, seeing the patterns I'd been rationalizing and excusing. The way he'd sulk or give me the silent treatment if I didn't do what he wanted. The way he'd bring up all the things he'd done for me whenever I tried to assert a boundary. The way he'd subtly put me down, criticizing my appearance or intelligence or choices while framing it as being helpful or concerned. The way he'd isolate me and then accuse me of not making him a priority. The way he violated my privacy and then act like I was being suspicious by objecting. These weren't acts of love, they were acts of control. Around month 5, Daniel's behavior escalated in ways that frightened me. He started showing up at the hospital during my shifts, claiming he was just bringing me lunch, but really checking up on me, making sure I wasn't talking to male coworkers or patients. He started accusing me of cheating with absolutely no evidence, going through my phone obsessively, questioning me about every interaction I had with any man. He started getting angry over smaller and smaller things, his mood swings becoming unpredictable. One minute he'd be loving and sweet, the next he'd be cold and cruel over something trivial like me forgetting to text him back within 5 minutes. The physical boundaries started eroding too. He'd grab my arm too hard when he was annoyed. He'd block doorways during arguments so I couldn't leave when I was upset. He never hit me, but he used his body and his size to intimidate me, to make me feel trapped and powerless.
I told my supervisor at work that I might be dealing with a difficult situation at home, trying to explain without going into too much detail because I felt ashamed that I'd let things get this bad. She didn't press for details, but immediately connected me with the hospital's employee assistance program, which included free confidential counseling sessions with therapists who specialized in various issues, including domestic problems. The counselor they connected me with was a woman named Dr. Martinez, probably in her 50s, with kind eyes and a calm demeanor that made me feel safe enough to tell her everything. Our first session, I cried for probably 40 minutes straight, just releasing all the fear and confusion and shame I'd been holding inside for months. She listened without judgment, asking clarifying questions occasionally, taking notes, letting me get it all out. When I finally stopped crying and started apologizing for being such a mess, Dr. Martinez leaned forward and said something that changed everything for me. Jessica, what you're describing is a textbook case of intimate partner abuse. The isolation from friends and family, the constant monitoring of your location and activities, the financial control, the invasion of privacy, the emotional manipulation where he makes you feel guilty for having boundaries, the escalating anger and physical intimidation. Your partner is abusive, and I'm genuinely concerned about your safety, especially if you try to leave. Those words, the label of abuse, hit me like a physical blow. But he says he loves me, I protested weakly, even though the words felt hollow even as I said them, even though some part of me already knew she was right. He's never hit me, he's never punched me or slapped me or left visible bruises. Doesn't it have to be physical violence to count as abuse? Abusers often say they love their victims, Dr. Martinez explained gently. They frequently believe they do love you, but their version of love is about possession and control, not respect and partnership. Real love doesn't make you feel afraid or anxious or small. Real love doesn't require you to give up your identity and autonomy and independence. Real love doesn't isolate you from everyone who cares about you. And abuse doesn't have to be physical to be real and damaging. Emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, they're all real forms of abuse that cause real harm. Over the next few sessions, which I attended during my lunch breaks at the hospital and told Daniel I was eating in the cafeteria, Dr. Martinez helped me understand the dynamics of abusive relationships in ways I'd never learned before. how they often start with love bombing, that intense attention and generosity and romance that feels incredible at first, but is really about creating dependency and obligation. How isolation happens gradually over time, so gradually you don't notice your support system disappearing until it's gone. How abusers use a cycle of abuse and apology and affection to keep victims confused and hoping for change, believing that if they can just be good enough or understanding enough, the person they fell for will come back. How the abuse escalates over time as the abuser feels more confident in their control and less worried about the victim leaving. She helped me recognize that Daniel's behavior wasn't going to improve or get better with time or love or patience. It was only going to get worse, only going to escalate, especially if I moved in with him like he was pressuring me to do, especially if I became even more financially dependent on him, especially if I got more deeply entangled in his life in ways that would make leaving harder. The most dangerous time for someone in an abusive relationship, Dr. Martinez told me, is when they try to leave. That's when abusers often escalate to more serious violence, when they realize they're losing control, when they feel most desperate and angry. So we needed to plan carefully. We created a detailed safety plan together over several sessions. I opened a new bank account at a completely different bank, one Daniel didn't know about and couldn't access, and started depositing a portion of each paycheck there. Not so much that he'd notice the difference in my checking account, but enough that over a few weeks I accumulated nearly $2,000 in emergency funds. I made copies of all my important documents, my passport and birth certificate and social security card and nursing license and lease agreement and insurance cards, and gave them to Mia for safekeeping, so Daniel couldn't hold them hostage or destroy them if things went badly. I packed a bag with several days' worth of clothes and toiletries and medications, a change of work scrubs, comfortable shoes, phone charger, copies of my documents, some cash, and kept it hidden in the trunk of my car under some gym equipment so it wouldn't be visible if Daniel looked in my car. I changed all my passwords on everything, phone and email and social media and banking apps, making them complex passwords Daniel couldn't guess and storing them in a password manager instead of writing them down anywhere he might find them. I turned off location sharing on my phone, deleting the app that let Daniel see where I was at any given time, and prepared myself for the angry questions that would inevitably follow when he realized he couldn't track me anymore. I told my supervisor and a few trusted coworkers about the situation in more detail, showing them a photo of Daniel so they'd recognize him if he showed up, asking them to call security immediately if they saw him at the hospital. I gave them Dr. Martinez's name and number as an emergency contact if something happened to me. I reconnected with my family after months of minimal contact, calling my parents one evening when Daniel thought I was working a late shift and explaining everything that had been happening. They were shocked and horrified and hurt that I hadn't told them sooner, but also immediately supportive in exactly the way I needed. "Come home anytime," my dad said, his voice breaking with emotion. "Tonight if you need to, tomorrow, whenever. Stay as long as you need. You always have a home here. We've got your back, honey. You're not alone in this." I reached back out to friends I'd been neglecting, sending messages apologizing for my absence and vaguely explaining that I'd been dealing with a difficult relationship situation. Most of them responded immediately with support and concern, offering help in whatever form I needed. No judgment about how long I'd been out of touch. I researched domestic violence resources in my city, memorizing phone numbers and addresses of shelters and support centers, reading online guides about how to leave safely, educating myself about restraining orders and how to file for them. I documented everything I could think of, screenshots of controlling texts, photos of the gifts he'd given me that I'd tried to refuse, notes on my phone with dates and times, and exact quotes of things he'd said that were particularly manipulative or threatening. I was building evidence, creating a record, protecting myself with documentation in case I needed it for legal purposes later. The hardest part was actually ending the relationship. I knew Daniel wouldn't take it well. He'd invested 6 months in controlling me and wouldn't want to lose that control. I planned to break up with him in a public place where I'd feel safe, somewhere with witnesses, somewhere I could leave quickly. I chose a busy coffee shop near the hospital during my lunch break on a Wednesday. Daniel, I need to talk to you about something important. I've been doing a lot of thinking and I've realized this relationship isn't healthy for me. I need to end things between us. His reaction was immediate and predictable. What are you talking about? We're happy together. I love you. I've given you everything, treated you better than any man ever has or ever will. You can't just throw that away. I'm not happy, Daniel. I've lost myself in this relationship. You've taken over every part of my life. You control who I see, what I wear, how I spend my money, where I go. That's not love, that's control. His face went through several expressions, confusion and hurt and anger all competing. I was helping you, guiding you, making you better. Everything I did was because I care about you. You're being dramatic and ungrateful. No, I said firmly, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. I'm being clear about my boundaries. This relationship is over. I need you to respect that. Daniel leaned forward, his voice dropping to that low, intense tone that always made me nervous. You don't mean that. You're upset about something. Probably your friend Mia putting ideas in your head again. Let's go somewhere private and talk this through. We can work this out. I'm not going anywhere with you. I meant what I said. We're done. Please don't contact me again. I stood up to leave and Daniel grabbed my wrist, just like he had on that first date 6 months ago. You're not walking away from me, he said, his grip painfully tight. I'd invested too much in you. You owe me. A barista was already approaching our table, having seen the interaction. Sir, I need you to let go of her hand. She clearly wants to leave. For a moment, I thought Daniel might actually cause a scene, might refuse to let go, might escalate the situation into something violent. But there were too many witnesses, too many people with phones out, too much risk to his carefully cultivated image as a successful professional. He released my wrist and sat back, his expression cold. You'll regret this. You'll realize what you gave up, how good you had it with me. No one else will ever love you like I do. You're right, I said. No one else will love me like you do, because what you do isn't love. Then I walked out of the coffee shop, got in my car, and drove straight to the police station to file for a restraining order. The next few weeks were difficult. Daniel didn't respect my request for no contact. He texted and called constantly, the messages cycling between apologetic and angry and pleading. I'm sorry, baby. I'll change. I'll be better. Just give me another chance. You're making a huge mistake, throwing away the best relationship you'll ever have.
How dare you humiliate me like this after everything I did for you? I blocked his number, but he'd call from different numbers or use apps that masked his identity. He showed up at my apartment building until I got a temporary restraining order. He tried to come to the hospital, but security escorted him out. He contacted my friends and family, trying to get them to convince me to take him back or to get information about where I was and what I was doing. He sent expensive gifts to my apartment, flowers and jewelry and handwritten letters about how much he loved me and needed me. It was overwhelming and exhausting, this barrage of contact that violated every boundary I tried to set. But I had support this time. Mia screened my calls and messages, filtering out Daniel's attempts to reach me. My coworkers at the hospital kept watch for him and called security immediately if he appeared. My family checked in on me daily, reminding me I was doing the right thing, offering their unwavering support. Dr. Martinez helped me process the guilt and the fear and the complicated feelings that come with leaving an abusive relationship. Because even though I knew logically that leaving was right, emotionally I was a mess. I felt guilty for hurting Daniel, even though he'd hurt me far worse. I felt stupid for not seeing the red flags earlier, for letting the relationship go on as long as it did. I felt ashamed that I'd let someone control me so thoroughly. I grieved the relationship I'd thought I had, the fantasy version where Daniel's attention was love rather than possession. After 3 weeks of constant contact attempts despite the restraining order, Daniel was arrested for violation. He spent a night in jail before posting bail, and the judge extended the restraining order to 2 years and made it very clear that any further violations would result in serious consequences. That seemed to finally get through to him, or at least made him realize the cost of continuing to harass me was too high. The contact stopped. I didn't hear from him again. Now, 8 months after leaving Daniel, I'm rebuilding my life and my sense of self. I'm back to spending time with friends and family, repairing the relationships I'd neglected during those 6 months. I'm throwing myself into my work at the hospital, remembering why I love being a nurse. I'm going to therapy regularly, working through the trauma of that relationship and learning to recognize the warning signs of abuse so I never ignore them again. I've redecorated my apartment to reflect my actual taste rather than Daniel's preferences. I've replaced all the expensive clothes he bought me with things I actually like to wear. I've reclaimed my space and my style and my independence. I'm not dating yet. I need time to heal, to rebuild my trust in my own judgment, to feel comfortable being alone without immediately jumping into another relationship. Maybe in a few months, maybe longer. There's no rush. What I've learned from this experience is that abuse doesn't always look like what we think it will. It doesn't always involve hitting or screaming or obvious violence. Sometimes it looks like a charming man who insists on paying for dinner and driving you home and buying you gifts. Sometimes it starts with attention and romance and promises to take care of you. Sometimes it masquerades as love while actually being about control. I learned that small boundary violations matter. When Daniel grabbed my wrist on that first date, when he ordered my food without asking, when he followed me home despite my objections, those weren't romantic gestures. They were him testing boundaries, seeing if I'd let him make decisions for me, establishing patterns of control from day one. I should have trusted my discomfort in that moment. I learned that isolation is a warning sign. When a partner wants you to spend all your time with them, criticizes your friends and family, makes you feel guilty for having relationships outside the romantic one, that's not love. That's control. Healthy relationships encourage you to maintain your support network. Abusive relationships try to cut you off from anyone who might help you leave. I learned that real love respects autonomy. My next partner, whenever I'm ready to date again, needs to understand that I'm a complete person with my own opinions and friends and career and interests. Partnership is about two whole people choosing to share their lives, not about one person absorbing the other. Real love doesn't require you to become smaller or different or less yourself. I learned that you can't love someone into changing. I spent 6 months trying to be perfect enough, compliant enough, understanding enough that Daniel would stop being controlling. But his behavior was never about me or my actions. It was about his need for control. Nothing I could have done would have changed that, because the problem was in him, not in me. Most importantly, I learned that leaving is possible, even when you're isolated and controlled and financially dependent and emotionally exhausted. Even when your abuser has convinced you that you need them, or that no one else will love you, or that you're overreacting, you can still leave. It takes planning and support and courage, but it's possible. And life after leaving, even with all the difficulty of rebuilding, is so much better than staying in a relationship that makes you feel trapped. If you're reading this and recognizing your own relationship in my story, please know that what you're experiencing isn't normal or healthy, and you deserve better. The charming person you fell for at the beginning, that's a mask they wear to hook you in. The controlling, critical, isolating behavior, that's who they really are. It's not going to get better. It's only going to escalate. Reach out for help. Call a domestic violence hotline, talk to a counselor or a trusted friend or family member. Make a safety plan, document the abuse, save money if you can, keep copies of important documents somewhere safe, and when you're ready, leave. You don't owe your abuser an explanation or a chance to change or closure. You just need to get out safely. The National Domestic Violence Hotline number is 1-800-799-7233. They have trained advocates available 24 hours a day who can help you create a safety plan and connect you with local resources. You're not alone, and you can get out. I'm sharing this story because I know so many other people, mostly women but not exclusively, are in relationships like the one I escaped. Relationships that start intense and romantic but quickly become controlling and suffocating.
Relationships where every boundary gets crossed and every aspect of life gets monitored. Relationships where you slowly lose yourself trying to keep someone else happy. If my story helps even one person recognize what's happening to them and find the strength to leave, then the 6 months I spent under Daniel's control will have meaning. My friend Mia, who stuck by me even when I was pushing her away, likes to remind me how strong I was to leave. But I don't always feel strong. I feel stupid for not seeing it sooner. I feel angry at myself for wasting 6 months of my life. I feel ashamed that I let someone control me so thoroughly. That's normal, Dr. Martinez tells me. Survivors of abuse often blame themselves because it feels safer to believe you had control over the situation, even if that control meant you were at fault. But the truth is, Daniel was skilled at manipulation. He targeted me specifically because I was caring and giving and wanted to make people happy. Those aren't weaknesses. Those are strengths that he weaponized against me. The shame is his, not mine. I'm working on believing that. Some days are harder than others. I'll see a man who looks like Daniel and feel my heart race with anxiety. I'll get an unknown phone call and freeze, convinced it's him finding a new way to contact me. I'll have to make a decision about something small, like what to order for dinner, and realize I'm still trying to figure out what I actually want versus what Daniel would have wanted me to want. Undoing 6 months of conditioning takes time, but I'm getting better. I'm relearning who I am without someone controlling every aspect of my life. I'm remembering what it feels like to make decisions based on my own preferences rather than trying to avoid conflict or judgment. I'm rebuilding relationships with people who love me for who I actually am, not who they want me to be. I'm finding joy in small things, like wearing comfortable clothes that Daniel would have criticized, or eating food he would have said was unhealthy, or spending an entire Saturday reading books he would have called a waste of time. My life is mine again. That's worth more than any expensive dinner or luxury gift or possessive declaration of love. Jessica, one of the nurses I work with, said to me recently, "I just want you to know how proud I am of you. You recognized an unhealthy situation and you got out. That takes real courage. Do you know how many people stay in relationships like that for years, for decades, because leaving seems impossible? You saw the truth and you acted on it. That's strength." Her words meant more to me than she probably realized, because most days I don't feel strong or courageous. I feel like someone who made a series of mistakes and poor judgments and got lucky enough to escape before things got worse. But maybe that's what courage looks like, not the absence of fear or doubt or shame, but the willingness to act despite those feelings. Last week, I went on my first date since leaving Daniel. Just coffee, very casual, with a guy I met through a friend. I was nervous to the point of nearly canceling 3 times. What if I couldn't recognize red flags again? What if I'd learned nothing and walked right into another controlling relationship? What if I was so damaged by what happened with Daniel that I'd never be able to trust anyone again? But I went, and it was fine. Nice, even. The guy, Marcus, was polite and respectful. He asked me questions and actually listened to my answers instead of interrupting with his own stories. When I said I needed to leave after an hour because I had an early shift, he didn't pressure me to stay or guilt me about cutting the date short. He didn't ask for my number or demand to know when he could see me again. He just said he'd had a good time and maybe we could do this again sometime if I was interested, leaving the decision completely in my hands. Walking to my car after that date, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not hope that Marcus would be the one or that I'd found my next relationship, just hope that healthy interactions were possible, that not all men would try to control me, that I could have connections with people that didn't require me to make myself smaller. That night, I called Mia to tell her about the date. "You sound happy," she said. "Not like excited or giddy, just content, peaceful, like yourself." That's what I want for you, Jess. Not a perfect relationship or a fairy tale ending, just you getting to be yourself without fear or anxiety or someone telling you you're not good enough. I am myself again, I told her, or at least I'm getting there. There are still bad days when I doubt everything, when I replay moments with Daniel and berate myself for not leaving sooner, when I wonder if I'll ever fully heal from those 6 months. But there are good days too, increasingly more good days than bad, when I remember what it feels like to live without constantly monitoring someone else's mood, without editing myself to avoid conflict, without that knot of anxiety in my stomach that became so familiar I almost forgot it wasn't normal. That first date, when Daniel grabbed my wrist and said, "Not while I'm breathing," should have been the last. I should have stood up, left the restaurant, blocked his number, never spoken to him again. But I didn't have the tools then to recognize what that moment meant. I didn't understand that a man who won't let you pay for your own meal probably also won't let you make your own decisions. I didn't see the connection between that possessive grip on my wrist and the way he'd eventually try to possess every aspect of my life. Now I know better. Now I understand that when someone shows you who they are through small actions, you should believe them. Now I recognize that control disguised as care is still control. Now I know that I'd rather be alone than with someone who makes me feel small and scared and lost. If you found this story meaningful, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from? Have you been in a relationship that started romantic but became controlling? How did you recognize what was happening? How did you find the strength to leave? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to realize they're not alone or to find the courage to escape. If this story helped you understand the dynamics of abusive relationships or made you think about your own relationship differently, please consider supporting the channel so I can continue sharing these important stories. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to reading your experiences in the comments. You can find more stories about relationships, boundaries, and personal strength on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story. See you in the next one.